just like seeing her for the first time.
The protagonist asked Edbut, "Who is he then?" He said that he is an incarnation, unbound by form, and he can be whatever he wants. He will show him his power after that. His small body trembled with tension, then he exclaimed in confusion, "Where did his strength go?" Perhaps the problem is that he reincarnated with an empty stomach. He must give him food. MC thought, "Why is this bear so rude then? He said that there is no food here, and he does not even know what he can eat." Strawn indignantly said that he can't even feed him. Why is his current master so weak? Protagonist asked, in surprise. Is he the master? Strawn lay down on his palm at that moment, turning his back to him, and said that he was sleepy. He should wake him up when it was time to eat. The protagonist put him on his shoulder and tried to comprehend what had just happened. King Rem laughed and said that years had passed and his personality was still the same. Looking at him with Strawn, he remembered the good old days. They reminded him of Strawn and Dra, whom he encountered in his homeland, the Sky Peak tribe young destroyer. What will he do with the power that makes him stronger? It can set him on the right path or eat him alive. MC thought that the reason he craved power was to protect his people from demons, raise the Ardell family name, and properly declare himself to those who despised him. For now, this will be enough. He has a lot to protect, so he will not pass up this opportunity. He then said that he would live by his own free will, for his people, his family, and himself. King Ram said that he would wait for the future to bring, although Ruin had gotten a clue about Dra's identity from King Ram. His daily routine had not changed at all, except for one detail during one of his training sessions. He wiped his sweat from his chin, and turned to his little comrade, and told him to wake up or he was not going to eat. Strand jumped, opened, shouted food. Strand's feeding was increased. This little guy is obsessed with food, and eats a lot. After swallowing a large portion of Ruin's power, Strand sat on his shoulder sighing heavily and said that he was feeling better now. The food in question was the power he gained from his mission's Hefeeds on his power then a system. Window appeared in front of the protagonist on which was written, Strand the embodiment of power 1 star, the only spirit of the physical world, responding with the mass primitive manifestation of power, becomes stronger as the vessel grows. Sharing everything with it challenged the 7th rule, along with the Black Dragon, Dragonia, and was destroyed. Unique skill of 1 star companion growth is shared with him by %. Unique skill companion gives him strength. This skill accelerated the development of the protagonist. He said that he gets an additional 2 strength every time he gets stronger. Strawn confirmed this and added that he will get when he gets 2 stars, when he gets 3, and soon at infinitum, before sealing. He had more than stars, MC thought in surprise. Strength, he doesn't even have a th strength, and he already feels incredibly strong. The protagonist Enthusiast asked how Dreher achieved this. Is there a way to increase strength, other than completing quests? His companion laughed, and said that's why he is great if he wants to know. He should give him water, the protagonist in him, that he should tell him if he did not want to die of hunger. His companion became nervous, and said, Thathar were many ways to become strong. For example, he could take on a quest of increased difficulty. The more difficult quest, the better the reward. Strength was also given by creating items or finding an artifact. You could also boil ogre tendons and make an elixir, but all these options were not for him. He is Sketwi. Strawn said that it was because he first needed to gain, at least, strength. His body would not be able to withstand power that grew exponentially. The protagonist realized that he was only at the very beginning of history. In that case, the next goal was to gain strength. He had to keep training. He trained every day to increase his physical strength, and when it reached the 3rd stage of Thigzam, the real fight began. Strawn asked the protagonist, is he having a combat test today? He smiled and replied that he had been waiting for this day. The test of real combat usually maze attack from behind, so there is a chance that in the general chaos, the spell may hit their own. This test is designed to test how well mages manage risks. This stage, Combat, said to be the most important of all. After some time, Jason decisively sent a fire attack forward. The Night's Watch stood in front of him, shouted indignantly, "What is he doing? He should not aim at them." Then the examiner sighed heavily, and said that he was out. He despairingly lowered his head and accepted his defeat. The Folden Knights were invited to help conduct the exam to ensure the safety of the students and to check their compatibility with them. Test lasted days. Depending on the points received, the students were given different monsters. At the end of the last day, participants with high scores were revealed, but since today is the last day of the test, everyone is curious about what kind of monster will appear in front of them. One of the challengers fearfully asked, "What is that, ain't?" Then he saw the monsters ahead and shouted in surprise, "It's an orc." Right, orcs live in groups and are common throughout the continent. They are much larger than humans and have comparable intelligence. They are cruel by nature, so there are constant wars between them and humans. The student asked if it was really okay to fight him. As part of the exam, his comrade asked, "What if someone died at his hands?" Heil, addressing the frightened students, said that they were magicians and should keep a cool head. They should treat this as a real fight and give it their all. They agreed with him, and then the fight began. Mikkel stood behind the knights and concentrated his energy and sent an ice arrow forward, but the people's faces changed in fear when the orc jumped over the knights and headed straight for the student. The professor worriedly shouted for him to dodge, but he froze, impossible to move his body. Paralyzed with fear at this point, Heil decided to intervene and used a tree, prison thieving, pulled the orc's body, and then the examiner informed Mel that he was out. El, seeing his nephew lose, slammed his hand on the chair and thought that he had screwed up again. He decided that he needed to somehow stop Ruin from passing the test. He then turned to the head of the academy and asked if he planned to continue the tests like this. Tyrion asked what he was hinting at. He said that it would be Ruin's turn soon, right? He confirmed it, and Alex said that Ruin was the only student to receive a perfect score from Kingram. Evaluating him equally with the other students would be unfair. Don't you think? The old man scratched his beard and said that he understood what he was getting at, but they didn't have any. Other monsters prepared the potions, Professor Smur, and said that they did have some when Theffelden Knights brought the orcs. They also brought an ogre with them. Using an ogre in the test is very dangerous. Bootsons, the professor and knights are present at the exam. He would like to see what Ruin is really capable of. After some time, our protagonist was walking down the corridor of the academy, when suddenly, Heil called a man standing in front of him, said that before the start, he had to tell him something today. His test would be harder than the others. MC, confused, asked what he was talking about. He said that they expect a lot from him since King Rem gave him the highest score, so some people think it is unfair to give him this same monster as the others. Therefore he will fight not an orc, but an ogre. The protagonist froze in surprise. Strone, who was sitting on his shoulder, smirked and said that his first real opponent is a Nagra. It will be fun. After some time, the ogre chained up was moved to the Aranagasan, looked at his classmate, and asked if that was the orc captain. He said that it wasn't, and that it was an ogre. He thought that it couldn't be. Jeter, the knight holding the sword in his hand, thought that he was asked to bring it bet. He didn't think it was right to use an ogre to test his skills. How strong was that student? Ogres look like orcs in appearance, but they are physically much stronger. They can crush a skull or dislocate vertebrae with one blow. The knight and asked the professor if he was sure about that. Even the knights had a hard time capturing him. Heil said that it was the order of the head of the academy. He chuckled and said that it seemed like the academy liked to bet their lives at that moment. MC came up to them and said that he would bet his life. Jeter looked at him in surprise, and Ruin introduced himself in response. The knight, confused, thought, was this guy put against an ogre, as if he could have fit him. If anything, he and the professor would protect him. Where was he going then? He said that he was going in the wrong direction. The protagonist turned to him and said that he was preparing for the test. That knight objected that he needed to stand behind. He replied that he would fight from here. His spells were a bit different from the usual ones. Jeter said worriedly that they would not be able to protect him. If he stood in front, he was not an orc. He was not to be trifled with. The protagonist said that he knew this, and then the knight asked why he was taking such a risk. Ruin threw back his cape and said that he was simply determined. The knight, looking at him, thought that he did not feel any fear from him at all. He believed that he really was different from the others. Then the professor said that the test was beginning and snapped his fingers, after which the iron shackles fell off the ogre, and the monster quickly ran forward. MC also did not stand still and ran, preparing to attack. GTA shouted in alarm, "What is he doing? He should stop," but at this moment, used a fireball and hit the monster's fist with his fist. The knight, covering himself with a shield, was surprised to think that he used a spell in close combat. Everyone present tried to cover themselves from the fire. Illich jumped up from his place. Watching what was happening, Jeter thought, in surprise, a student of the Magic Academy, went on the attack. He hoped that he did not die. After some time, when the dust that had risen gradually settled, he saw the silhouette of the student and thought that he was alive. How was he still standing? Then he put his hand on his shoulder and shouted that he should have let him know. Right away, he almost died. Our protagonist apologized to him, and then asked, but would he have allowed him to act like that? Back then, there is no time for talking now. First he needs to complete the test. The enraged ogre at that moment looked at them with a terrifying gaze. The knight told Ruin to step back. He understands that he is strong, but it is too dangerous. He should stay aside until they figure it out completely. The protagonist did not listen to him and moving forward, said that this is his test, he must let him finish it. In front of him stood an ogre 5 times larger than him, against whom had to fight. There were 2 reasons that gave him courage. The first was his skill, namely, the title received from Congram, which allowed him to communicate with ogres. He understood what exactly he was shouting. The monster at that moment was furiously screaming for him to stay away and free it. Ordinary people saw only a ferocious monster, but not him. This ogre was scared because he was surrounded by mages and knights. The second was a task that suddenly appeared. A system window appeared in front of him, on which was written an emergency task, time to fight. He was faced with an enemy couldn't avoid. He had to subdue the enemy faster than the others. He had to punch the enemy and defeat him. Their word was promised to be plus strength and the players' a skill. It was a great reward for him, who was forced to do the same task every day. He thought 3 days reward at a time. He had no reason to hesitate. The first objective was completed after his punch. He said that was not all. The ogre screamed that he would kill him, and then pushed off the ground and swung his fists. Rising into the air, he screamed that he would smash his head, then punched his fist straight in front of him, hitting the ground. The protagonist waited for his attack and thought Thoth needed to find his weak spot, after which he used time refraction and ran forward again. The knight was perplexed and thought, where did such speed come from? Our protagonist at this time was getting closer and closer to the monster and again concentrated energy in his hand. He thought that he needed to hit the vulnerable point, after which he hit the monster in the lower abdomen. Galta thought that he did not flinch against the ogre. Who is he? The students were also amazed by the sight. They did not understand what was happening at all. The ogre was fighting back, the hands off the monster, and the protagonist met, trying to overpower their opponent. But at that moment, Ruin swung his leg and hit the ogre with his knee in the arm, to which the monster grabbed his leg and threw him aside. But MC turned over in the air and landed on the ground. The next second, an ogre ran straight at him. Thrusting his fist forward, it hit the wall right, and the protagonist flipped in the air and landed behind the monster. The ogre turned around and said that he was a dodgy rat, and then the protagonist pushed off the ground again and flew up, attacking the enemy in the face, causing the monster to fall to the ground. He walked along his body, getting closer to his face, and thought that it was time-toned. He used the skill Ogre Fury and increased his strength. For seconds the monster asked, is he even a human? The monster's eyes widened when he heard the protagonist ask, does he expect to answer? Asked, does he understand what he is saying? MC swung to strike and said, like him, what is he saying? Right after which used explosive burning mana. A powerful blow fell on the monster's facete system, notified that the effect of the Ogre Fury skill strengthens the attack. Switching to Berserk mode, when force released the protagonist, he stopped in place and thought, is that all? Folded his paws on his chest, unthought that he was not bad, maybe even better than he expected. The Stent students were shocked that he actually defeated him, and then they cheered that it was cool. Illich realized that Ruin actually won. Jeter approached the protagonist and asked who taught him to fight like that. He answered no one. The knight asked, incredulously, does he meant to say that he learned it himself? MC confirmed it, and then turning to Heil, asked if it was possible to know the result of his test. The professor was silent for a while, and then looking at the defeated monster, said that he was not Sure of his victory, but he did not even give a chance to intervene. He again exceeded his expectations. He passed the emergency mission, was completed, and the rewards were received.